guys? RVA Returns back again for the last of the main color reviews of Opus 8. This time we're going to do Water. I think they got some interesting cards too. I'm excited to go through Water. Water's an element that I kind of have a love-hate with. I like some of the cards and not a huge fan of some of the other cards, but you know, it brings a pretty cool thing to the game. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
all right, so let's get right into it. So first card is
Dive
gonna,
in, baby. Let's do it.
First card is going to be Alexander. It's a 1 CP Category 9 summon. Choose one of the following 2 actions. Choose a forward of cost 3 or less opponent controls, return it to its owner's hand. Choose a monster of cost 3 or less, opponent controls, return to its owner's hand.
You know, I think I was just saying before we started this, I don't know how I feel about this card. You know, it costs 1, which is not terrible. I think anything that costs 1 that, you know, has, you know, you get to choose one of 2 things for 1 CP. It's not terrible. Obviously, I think one of the initial combos that came up was the Opus I Hope. You know, casting this and then being able to like ready all of your backups, that seems pretty okay to me if you're playing a wind-water strategy. It does hit a sweet spot of monster being that 3 cost, which could be really, really good. It does bounce some very troublesome forwards in the game right now, like Chelinka, Y'shtola, Pain, which obviously you don't want to bounce those because you don't want them drawing more cards, but it gets them out of the way long enough to possibly swing through and win. I think, you know, you can get a lot of the small, like Noctis. Like if you're swinging for game and they got Noctis on the board, you just play that for 1 CP, bounce them back to their hand. And there's really nothing they can do about it. So I think overall, because I'm just really unsure about this card, I think I'm just going to kind of go middle of the road because I see a lot of high, but I also see it maybe not making the cut in some decks. So I think in standard, I'm going to give it a 3. I think in title, it's actually not terrible because it's great against 12, which it feels like 9 was just now built to beat 12 because you can just bounce Fran back and then just go to town on all their ball thieves now, or at least, you know. So I think in title I'll give it a 4. In standard I'll give it a 3.
I'm gonna give it a 2 in standard. I think it's not its fault. I think it's the rare Yuna's fault.
Sure.
Because that just makes 2 CPs better value because I'm only paying 1 CP for them as well. I think the best thing the card does is probably bounce Y'shtola back to its owner's hand to make him pay for it again. It does have some cool stuff with Hope, like you said. You can do like some kind of Valafor shenanigans, so maybe that's worth it. I just don't know if you're going to be able to cut enough cards in Wind Water to make that work. And I don't know if you need more of that in Wind Water. So maybe it's more like a budget-friendly version. I'm not sure. Even then, I don't even really know how much more budget-friendly that is.
Exactly.
I do think the big winner from this card is the starter Garnet. Gives her another target.
Yeah.
I think you probably would rather play this over the Opus 5 Leviathan. The only thing you're losing is burst and maybe the potential upside to bounce something really big. But you can play this at more points of the game and get value. Even though I think Poo Poo or Moogle is probably still her best target. So yeah, that's why I'm on a 2. In title, I'll give it a 3. I think it's slightly more playable there. But I think 9's gotten so many cards now that, like, I don't even know if this is going to make the cut or not. But I'll give it a 3 because I
can agree with that.
Yeah, I do think it is playable there. I just not sure if it's going to make the 50.
Yeah, that's why I'm just so unsure about that card, just in general.
Yeah. Next up is Ico. It's a 5 CP 4K Category 9 Job Summoner. When it enters the field, you may search for 1 summon and add it to your hand. When it's put from the field to the break zone, draw a card.
I didn't know how I felt about this card at first, but I think you actually made me a believer of this in like a carbuncle strategy. Being able to play this, grab a carbuncle out of your deck, and then she makes a fantastic carbuncle target. And then if they kill her, you draw a card.
Yep.
I think she's great. I'm gonna go ahead and give her a 3 in standard because I feel like she goes in a very specific deck. And I think in like a deck like a carbuncle deck, I think she's a 4, maybe even a 5. But I think in other decks, I just don't see her doing much else other than literally just getting you a summon. And if they're going to waste a Diabolus on that, shame on them.
Yeah.
But also she makes a good chump blocker. I can also see her maybe in like Ice Water as well, just almost acting like another Viking or another great Famfrit target. So actually, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to actually give her a 4 in standard because she does go in some pretty solid archetypes. And in title, I also think she's fine. I think she's maybe a 4 there because, again, you're drawing a card off of her because she's going to die. and you get a summon, and being able to get 9 didn't really have many summons, and being able to maybe get an Atmos out of your deck to have something fight with one of your big guys could be good. So I don't know. I think she's a I'll just give her a 4 across the board.
So in standard, I'm gonna give her a 5. Actually,
Okay.
I think she's insanely strong. I think you can kind of put her anywhere where like you want to be playing summons. I'm not sure she makes the cut in Wind Water just because she is kind of expensive there. Their summons are already like they're already so efficient. They don't need this.
Exactly.
You're not Diabolus in this thing. Like she's basically costs 1 once she leaves the field, unless you have like the unit H to stop her from hitting the break zone. In a summoner deck, if you really want to run like Braska, she costs 4, so that's pretty good. But I don't think that's where you're gonna see her. But like if you put her with fire, she's gonna search Phoenix. If you put her in Carbuncle, she's gonna search Carbuncle. She just searches because she's not limited to color, and it's like any summon you want. Like I mean, you could play this search Zodiark, and if you play like if you have Galdus out now, you just play Zodiark and you clear their board and take your damage and then swing through. Like there's just so many things that she does. I think she could just slot in as like a 1 of in so many decks.
Yeah.
And if you're really summon focused, maybe a 2 of. I don't know if you're ever running a playset, but I think she's insanely strong. And the fact that she even comes with a body, I think makes her a little absurd, because then I could replay her. Sadly she's not searchable because her searcher is herself. And she is searchable by the other 5 CP Steiner. But you can't really play a backup searcher because it's herself.
Well, but you can Merleweb.
You could Merleweb, yeah. You could play like the generic water tutor. I just think she's really good. Again, I don't think she's doing anything unfair. I just think she's absurdly like high value. Next up is Garnet. She's a 2 CP EX burst forward job summoner, category 9, 5,000 power. When she enters the field, choose 1 forward, activate it. If a forward you control is dealt damage by a summon, reduce the damage by 5,000 instead.
I actually think this card's kind of absurd too. The fact that if you have something like this in conjunction with like Minwu, anything that's gonna deal damage to like summons, like pretty much your fire summons have just become useless. I think it's great when you play again. We're talking about another great Carbuncle card, because this thing now kind of shores up Moogle Knight's problem. So the fact that they have to target this thing, it's going to take 5,000 damage less from a summon, and you can just pump it with Carbuncle Graviton triggers. When it's going to come into play, it can activate something that maybe attacked last turn. I think this is just a great main 2 play. So now you've got a Carbuncle threatening defense now, or it lets you like again in Carbuncle decks, it lets you get tricky. You can attack with Porum, and they're like, oh, that was stupid, and then you're like, Garnet, activate Porum, and now you've got like that negate sitting up as well. And of course, you're being a 2 CP 5K, she's just in the great power range for that. So, and I think in standard, even though I think she really shines in a Carbuncle deck, I don't know where she goes in other decks. So I still think the Legend Garnet is just an extremely nutty card. But I think the effects that she does and just really protects against a lot of damage-based things is really good in my opinion. The fact that, again, not to keep rambling on, but I think the fact that with she's out, Ramu is only doing the 3 CP. Ramu is only doing 2K to something. That's pretty big to me. So I think with that alone, I'm gonna give her a 3. I could easily go with a 4, but I think because she is limited and because the legendary is still a very good card, I'm gonna go with 3. And I think in title, I think she's probably a 3 as well there, because there's not really a lot of summons out. Well, maybe I could actually maybe see her being a 4 now, because now that they made that ruling about special summons being in every deck, you could expect to see more of the Bahamut being in decks in title. So I might actually give her a 4.
Yeah, so in standard, I'm going to give her a 3 also. I think she's just really solid. In Carbuncle, I think she's probably a pretty absurd. But in other decks, I think she's just really solid. The fact that she has 2 really good abilities that are probably going to help protect other things as well as herself, and then she's also going to activate something just for 2 and put a body on the board. I think she might be better than the Legend right now. I'm not... The Legend could obviously, like, if something else comes out, could jump her. But I think if I'm looking at building a deck with water cards in it, I'm probably looking at this before I look at the Legend.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
In title, I think she's actually a 5. Only reason I think that is because there's a card we haven't reviewed yet called Medine, and that is also a 9 card,
Yeah.
and that gives 9 access to a one-sided board wipe essentially. So
Yeah, I forgot about Medine. Go ahead and put a giant red X through my rating and give her a 5 in title. I completely forgot about Medine.
yeah, so I think she's just like gonna be in every 9 title deck, honestly. So just a really really solid card.
Now, when I watch this video, I want a really sick animation of like you like putting like the Ghostbuster sign, like the no over my 4, and then replacing it with a glittering 5 stars.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen, but that's
Aw.
okay. So next we got Quinna. Oh, Quincy with the snacks, right?
Yeah, look at that art. Quincy is in deep cover.
It's a 4 CP AK Cat 9 job Blue Mage. Remove the top 5 cards of your deck from the game until end of turn. She gains 1,000 power and cannot be chosen by opponent's abilities. You can only use this ability once per turn.
Man, poor Quincy. Can Quincy get a good card? I don't really know where you're playing this. Maybe I could see it in a dedicated 9 shell as maybe like a 1 of, just to really just maybe push a threatening body. But is it worth removing the top 5 cards of your deck? Because I figure she's blue. Blue draws a lot of cards, and those 5 cards off the top are extremely critical. So I think in standard, I'm gonna have to give her a 1. In title, I'm probably gonna have to give her a 2 because I don't. If you're playing her in title, you're maybe playing 1 of. But I do think it because it's a 9 forward that is decent and searchable. So maybe 1. So yeah, 1 standard, 2 in title.
Yeah, I'm gonna mirror that. I think she's actually a great limited card, but in standard, yeah, 5 cards is a lot. She's not really doing anything that water can't really do better, to be honest. Like, I could just play Minwu to protect myself from a lot of things. So this is only protecting you from like straight breaks, I guess. And then for 5 cards off the top of your deck, and then they can respond again. That's the problem, because you can only use it once per turn. If I remove 5 and they have 2 things to target her, they can just like try to kill her. Then I try to stop it, and then they just kill her again, and I have nothing at that point. So yeah, I don't see where she's gonna see play. And then in title, I'll give her a 2 just because maybe as a 1 or 2 of maybe, but yeah, even then probably not. Next up is Zidane. So that's the first legend that we've seen from Water. He's a 2 CP category 9. If you have 6 or more cards in your hand, Zidane cannot be blocked. When Zidane deals damage to your opponent, draw 2 cards. And then Solution 9 for S, 2 Water. Choose a forward until end of turn. It loses 2,000 power for each card in your hand.
I think this card is absurd. This card is absolutely nuts. Again, when we went through the Lightning review, this was the card I was kind of talking about, these turn 1 forwards kind of bringing it all to a head. There is 0 reason to not play this guy on turn 1 and make your opponent deal with it. Because more times than not, unless you're playing against like a Lightning deck or a Fire deck running backup VV, you're going to come out ahead on whatever they try to use to remove this. If your opponent wants to waste a Valifor on it, by all means. They want to waste any other piece of damage removal on it, by all means. Go ahead. You want to play a card, like say, you're against Lightning. Obviously, they're going to play like something like Black Mage or something, which is fine because they're building board state and killing it. But if they want to like play Jene from hand to put 4K, that's just stupid. Like, it's your opponent's going to spend more trying to remove it than you are. And when you play this guy on turn 1, on turn 2, you're going to draw your cards, you're going to attack, and then you're going to have 8 cards in your hand. Just absolutely nuts. And then the fact that his S is super relevant. Because you can have 8 cards in your hand. You're like, all right, well, just maybe later in the game when you're just drawing all these nutty cards, you're like, all right, well, I'll just put 12K. I'll just reduce something by 12K, and then I'll just keep going about what I'm doing. I think the card's just really, really absurd. And again, he's great in carbuncle strategies. I think he is the centerpiece of those Fire, Water, 9 strategies that are kind of floating around with this set. Card's just good. I think he's a 5 in standard. I also think he's a 5 in title. I could easily go to a 4 because I think a lot of times too there's more answers for him in title. But I still think in any format you have this guy, limited, title, whatever, you play this guy turn 1 if he's in your hand and just see what happens. So 5. I'm gonna go 5 across the board.
Yeah, I think he's also a 5 across the board. I think in testing I've maybe lost 1 game where he's actually hit somebody.
Oh, dude, if he hits once or twice, you just win.
I
You
think,
just win.
yeah, I think if he hits twice, it's a guaranteed win. I think you'd have to like have a stroke and not be able to finish the game. So, but I mean, if he hits once, I think it's really impressive. I think your opponent like has to kill him, and if you play him turn one, yeah, like you can't really you have to kill him. You can't play a forward because I'm gonna draw to 6 and then swing and draw to 8 and then play backups and then pass and then draw to 6 again. Like, it's just rough. I think lightning can deter him a lot. Turn one. I think they have the best answers to him through Black Mage. Even Janai is fine because they're going to swing at you the following turn, right, if they play it. So I think that's a pretty solid answer. Obviously, yeah, like the backup Black Mage, backup VV. Those are like, if you can develop a backup and kill this guy, you're in good shape. You're actually going to set them behind. I think that's one of the few situations where I feel like the player that killed Zidane comes out significantly ahead. But other than that, yeah, I think if he hits once, you're probably going to win. If he hits twice, I think you're definitely going to win. And then his S is just like a cherry, kind of. Outside of title, it's a cherry to me. Like, you're probably not going to get it off. But if you do, it's probably going to feel pretty decent. The later in the game, though, the worse this card is. The easier he's going to be to kill, the more efficient. The easier it's going to be to kill him efficiently. But when you play him early, like turn 1, turn 2, like, and force an answer, your opponent's going to panic because they have to kill it. And they might even have to overspend. Like, I mean, if you have to, like, if you're Earth or something and you have to Prompto this, I think you have to do it. Like, you can't let this guy hit you. He just gives them too much. And then in title, you're playing like 30 Zidanes, so like he has an S that's probably going to go off like all the time. So that's pretty good. And I think even in title early, like, it's going to be hard to kill him. Like, there's not much. You still can't put stuff in front of him. There's not a lot of stuff that just kind of comes in that early. It just like blows him up.
And even in title, he's good late because you can just play the 3 CP Zidane to strip all the answers out of their hand.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. He's pretty decent late, but he's still like, there's more answers to him, right? So I think it's pretty similar in title and in standard, but I think he's going to be one of the chase legendaries in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Next up is Shimon P. Grouch.
Shimon!
If a forward you control receives 1,000 damage, the damage becomes 0 instead.
I don't think the card's great. I don't think it's bad. I just don't know where it's going to see play. I think in a world where you have Minwoo, there's no reason not to play Minwoo. I'll probably go ahead and give it a 1 in standard. Now, if it was its chapters counterpart, the thing would be absolutely nutty, and I'd give it a 5. But no, that's not the world we live in. So I think it's a 1 in standard. And I mean, it's an 11 backup that costs 2 CP. So maybe in title, I'll give it a 3, just because it's 2 CP backup, and they don't really have a whole lot of those. So, or they do. They're all screen caps. All the art's very forgettable.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah, so maybe it's still a 1 in title. I don't know. I'm just gonna go 1 across the board. I'm not really excited about this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it 1s across the board. I think in standard in both he's just awful. Honestly, like, it's just how many instances outside of just a Cactuar hitting you after a barb or something are you receiving exactly 1,000 damage?
Not many.
Like, I can't really think of any other thing. If this said all forwards would be in business, because I think then Donnarumma would have an extremely tough time in general. So, but because it doesn't say that, I think it's just a bad card that probably won't see any play.
Yep.
Next up is White Mage, 2 CP, category 14, standard unit backup. For 1 water, Dole, put it in the break zone, activate all forwards you control.
I actually don't mind this card at all. The fact that it's instant speed, it's something that water could use on those turns where maybe that if you're playing those big water decks and you kind of swing out, having that thing up, it's almost like having a Layak essentially for water. Obviously, if they play Emperor, that plan is just left out in the cold. But I don't think it's terrible. I think it could easily be maybe like a 1 of, maybe a 2 of in some water decks. So I'll give it a 3 in standard. It's not the right color for title, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a 0. But I think the card's fine overall.
Yeah, I'll give it a 2 in standard. I think it's like semi-playable. It does something that's pretty cool. In limited, I think it's pretty nuts card actually. But But in standard, I just don't see you making room for this in your water decks. But it does do something pretty decent. In Title, yeah, it's a 0. You're never playing this because I don't think Title's ever going to go to a point where they're playing a bunch of water cards. So you're going to struggle to even get the ability off.
Yep.
Next up, we got Steiner. He's a 3 CP, 7K, Category 9 Job Knight. When Steiner or a Category 9 character enters the field, activate Steiner. Dull, choose a forward, gains 1,000 power until end of turn. During this turn, the next damage dealt to it is reduced by 1,000 instead.
I think this is a really neat card. I'm going to go ahead and go with the Title rating first. He is straight up a 5 out of 5 in Title for the deck because he's always going to be activated. And the fact that you can, there's turns where you'll be able to tap, buff your dudes, and you'll just be able to keep playing a guy, ready him, tap, ready, play a guy, ready him. He's going to get a lot of things. He's going to get a lot of those activations off every turn in Title. So he's a 5 in Title. Standard, I'm really not sure. Because I think in some decks where you're running a heavy 9 package, it's really hard to compete with the 5-drop Steiner because he just kind of gets the value train going for Final Fantasy 9. And even then, when you get to a point where you're kind of stabilized and that one's dead, I think the 4 CP one just does something better in the mid to late game because he's going to draw you a card and he's going to be a body that could potentially protect your guys by tapping them into him to make him bigger. So... But I think in the Fire Water aggro deck, where you're playing a really heavy dedicated 9 package, but again, I still think you're also playing the 5-drop Steiner. Maybe this could make the cut as a 1-of, but I don't know. So because I'm not really sure about him yet, I'm going to have to give him a 2, maybe a 3 for Standard. But I'm going to go with 2 because I just feel like you're playing the 5-drop one to get everything started.
Yeah, in Title, he's a straight-up 5. I don't see a world where you're not playing this in your Title deck unless you really are like all in on Melt Gemini or something. Even then, he's probably going to be playing that deck too because he still gets the damage reduction.
Yeah.
I think he's a 3 in Standard. I think in Water Fire he's very, very interesting because you can Phoenix him in and activate him.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool. I think in a Knight's deck he's also very interesting. You might not necessarily need to play the 5 CP Steiner there if you just kind of go a little bit lighter on 9. Maybe you're just playing like Beatrix and 1 or 2 other cards that you don't necessarily need to search. And in that case, I think he's just solid. Like he's letting your Knights be more like harder to kill, really, and just bigger in general. I think Knights looks a lot different now, and it might even be a pretty good deck. We'll have to see. I'll have to hold judgment on that, but.
And the fact that it says character is really huge.
Yeah, because you can actually play monsters and activate them. You could play like an Ozma. You could play Melt Gemini or something like that if you want.
Yep.
And still, untap him, as well as backups. So, like, things that I commonly see play like Braun. Will untap him as well. Yeah, I think he's just solid.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Next up is Strago. He's a 2 CP backup Category 6. For 1 water and Dull, put him in the break zone. Choose a card named Realm. It costs 2 or less in your break zone and play it onto the field. You can only use this ability during your turn.
I think the card's fine. I think he's okay in like a dedicated, maybe like a mono water monsters deck where, any monster deck where you're playing Realm. I'm not going to start naming specific monster decks, but if you're playing Realm, there's no reason not to play at least one of this guy. Just goes to let you recycle your realms, get your monsters, and obviously I think in the decks where you're playing Realm, she's critical to that deck because she can, make monsters 7Ks. She just does stuff, and she's a burst. And then she makes a good chump blocker. You can get it back with him, and it might even allow you to lower your realm count. So I think that's good. And I think in Title, I originally said this card wasn't good in Title. But the fact that they've printed a new realm, which I know we'll get to, I think this card now becomes a Title card because you can feed Strago S, which I think is really important for helping some of your guys get over. And, the fact that the realm can help deal with monsters, which I think monsters are going to be tough in Title. If you have monster answers in Title, you have to play them. So I think he's good. I think in Title, I'll give him a 2 because he's only going to be good in specific matchups. In Standard, I'm also going to give him a 2, maybe a 3, but because you're dedicated, he's tethered to Realm, and you're only playing Realm in one specific type of deck.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little bit harsher on him, I think, and give him a 1 across the board.
Sure.
I don't think he's like completely awful or anything. I think in monster decks, if you've seen like a lot of them have been cutting Realm out either completely or just going down to like a 1 or 2 of max.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're going to be hard pressed to play a backup that's going to maybe just recur that for you. And then in Title, I think the One Realm is just bad in Title. I don't think Strago Est is like that great. It's okay. But I'd rather run like more Sabins or something, right? Before I'm running this. And then the other realm is okay in Title. We haven't gotten to her yet, but I don't know if that really saves this card. So I'm just gonna be a little more harsh. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe people are trying it with Realm. You might see. I mean, he's got decent value as a 2. So. Next up is Astrologian. It's a 3 CP, 6K, category 14 standard unit. For 1 water, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a water card, Astro gains plus 3,000 power until end of turn. You can only use this ability once per turn.
I mean, it's a standard unit, so my mind immediately goes to Warrior of Light. She could potentially be a 1-cost standard unit. But I think that deck gets a little tight, and I just don't think she makes the cut. I don't know. I guess the title's the easy one first. I think she's a 0 because she's not a Scion. She doesn't do anything to kind of help that board, and I just don't think she makes the cut there. In Standard, maybe a 1. Maybe I think she's a 1 in Standard because I think if you're playing a Standard unit deck, there's just better ones. And I'm not real big on giving my opponents information, especially when it's just making a guy big. But if you're playing a Standard unit deck, all of your guys are that big anyway, if not bigger.
Yep.
So I think she's a 1 in Standard, 0 in Title.
Yeah, she's a 1 across the. She's a 0 in Title, 1 for me in Standard. There's just way better things to play. I wouldn't play this unless you really want to for some reason. It's not doing anything spectacular. I think it's actually just a pretty bad card in general.
Yeah.
And then in Title, it's just never gonna see play. So. Next up is Paladin. It's a 2 CP standard unit backup for category 14 for a water. Dull, put it in the break zone. Choose 1 forge you control and 1 other forge you control. During this turn, the next damage dealt to the former is received by the latter instead.
I think it's a cute card. It's great for cute tricks like, being able to, maybe do this and funnel damage to Moogle Knight where it's going to take 3 less. Maybe funnel damage to Dodaluma and maybe let him go to town on somebody else. Maybe funnel the damage to Noctis and he can't get broken by it. Funnel the damage to Windmill where she can't receive it. It reminds me a lot of a 1-use Tim Drake from the Teen Titans build where you could funnel the damage to whoever. And usually the combo was you funneled it to Red Star and he couldn't be stunned. So I think this card kind of works like that. It's cute. I don't really know where it's going to see play. In Title, it's a 0 because it's not. It doesn't do. Again, it's not a Scion. It doesn't do anything to help Scions or the board state. In Standard, I'll give it a 1, maybe a 2. But I think you're just spending a lot of resources to do something cute. So yeah, I'll give it a 1.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a lot. It sets up a lot of cute plays, but it's nothing cute that your opponent can't see. It's on the board. If you can see it, and they're just as good of a player as you, they can see it. So it's a cute play, but you're obviously it's also telegraphed.
Yep.
So I'm gonna put it at a 1, 2, and then in Title, it's a 0. You're just not playing this card in Title.
Yep.
Next up is Gramps.
My man Gramps with the best job in the game, son.
Yeah, job elderly man. He's a 4 CP EX burst. When he enters the field, draw a card.
Gramps is a 5 out of 5. Just because he's there, you're happy that he's there. He's probably got maybe a nice Werther's original in his pocket for you, and that's not a bad thing. I think in Standard you're not playing this card. If you're playing a 4 CP EX burst backup that's going to draw your cards, you're playing Merleweb. So I think in Standard he's probably a 0. This card just strikes me as just kind of just draft chaff. And I think in Title, I think you play him just because he's going to draw you cards and he's a Legends backup, which is, good. So I think in Title, he's a 3. In Standard, he's a 0, honestly.
Yeah, in Standard, I'm actually going to give him a 3, I think. I think he's an interesting alternative to Merleweb, actually. Merleweb is interesting when you're, maybe playing more light cards and you're really trying to dig further and filter, and you don't mind the extra discard. Whereas he's going to give you 1 less card to look at, but you don't have to discard anything at all. So I think it's like an interesting dynamic of what you want to play. But I mean, I do think in most situations, Merweb's probably still going to be better, just because you want to see more of your deck. In Title, I think you pretty much have to play him. I don't see a reason not to play him, so I'm gonna give him a 4. I mean, he just draws you a card.
Now, if every pack with Gramps comes with like a free coupon for like a bag of like butterscotch candy, then he'll get a 5 out of 5.
He's gonna give you like Mary Jane's. What are those like really hard candies that old people give you?
All those things that come in like the generic packaging, they break your teeth. Oh yeah.
Next up is Nicole or Nickel. Not really sure. Apparently, it's a guy. I didn't know.
Yeah, it's a he. It's definitely a he.
It's a 4 CP, 7K, Brave Exvius. When it enters the field, choose 2 forward opponent controls, up to 2. They lose 1,000 power for each water backup you control until end of turn. And then for 1 water and dull, all water forwards you control gain 1,000 power until end of turn.
I actually like this card a lot. I think it's just another great card in conjunction with Cognazzo, with Cloud of Darkness. The fact that obviously, the lowest they're ever going to go is they're going to be reduced by 5K. So you can kill smaller things. You can kill Porum. You can kill, it kills Zidane. It kills VV. Like anything that's 5K or less. And I think that's fine. And you get to choose up to 2. So, if there's 1 there or if there's none there, you can still play it. And it doesn't feel as good. But it's also like a great main 2 play after you swing with Cloud of Darkness. But also, too, at the same time, we've said before, if you're swinging with Cloud of Darkness, you're probably winning the game. So I think it's a good mono water card if you're playing that style of deck. So I think in Standard, it's at least a 3. I could easily give it a 4 because you only need to put 1, maybe 2 of these in the deck. So I think because it's good mono water, I will just give it a 3, but I could give it a 4. But I'm going to firmly plan it 3. And in Title, I don't know. There's not really any Brave Exvius water backup, so I might sadly have to give it a 0 for now.
Yeah, in Title, I'm going to give it a 1 just because maybe it sees play at some point because his text is pretty good. But yeah, I don't think there's any water backups unless you're playing the Evokers. In Standard, I think this card's a 4. I think you play it in conjunction with Cognazzo, and it requires you... Now you don't need the Scholar. Maybe Cognazzo hits the board for 4K, and maybe, let's say they only have 3 forwards out, but you really only care about 2. Now you can 4K the board and then play this, and then 5K to the other 2 and kill them. I think that's a really big deal. Yeah, I mean, I guess it does combo really well with Cloud of Darkness attacking, but yeah, I think if you're doing that, the game's probably over. And then, yeah, sometimes she'll just let you swing through for a turn as well. You just come in, you reduce 2 things by 5K, and then it lets you just swing with, your smaller guys, maybe your Layla or something like that. And that feels bad when you have to take damage from that later in the game. And then her last ability is not, super relevant, but maybe it could win you some games every now and then. To be able to get that extra 1,000 power. But you are dulling her, or him, which doesn't feel super great.
Yep.
Next up is Ninja. He's a 3 CP 5K standard unit. Tactics Advance. For water, dull, put it into the break zone, choose a forward opponent controls, activate it, and gain control of it until end of turn.
I think this card's kind of nuts, especially I know recently they had the ruling about how it can interact with Arden and just really blow him up. So I think this card's really, really solid. I think it's great in standard unit builds because you can just do a lot with it. Obviously, the Arden thing is really good. Also, the fact that it's not limited to your turn. This could be one of those things where, again, we're beating up on Earth cards here. You have this guy out. They have Noctis out. On their turn, they go to attack you, just steal Noctis. And now, every time they attack, your Noctis is going to fight one of their guys, and you could potentially just kill them both.
Yep.
So I think there's some really, really tricky plays with this card. I think it's kind of a big brain card for sure to really get the max value out of it. And also, I think it's great in Carbuncle deck because he's right at that sweet spot. And then the fact that you could, buff him and do stuff, and then on their turn you can just get real tricky with him. I think he's good. I'm gonna give him. I could easily give it a 4, but man, I might give this card a 4 in Standard. I think I am. I'm doing it. I've talked myself into it. I'm giving him a 4 in standard. I think in title he's a 4 as well because just being able to steal something for a turn and being able to just do whatever you want with it and kill it and then get rid of. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm gonna give him a 3 in standard just because I do think it's like a little particular in what decks you're gonna play him in, but I think if you can fit him in, he's gonna be able to do some pretty sweet lines. Like you said, because it's not limited to your turn, you can steal stuff like as they're attacking and block with it, so it's an extra thing your opponent has to think about. In fire, you could give him haste pretty easily and steal stuff like that turn. You can even defensively steal a Noctis, like if or like offensively, I mean, like if they're trying to use it to protect themselves from the 6 point of damage, you just take their Noctis and then swing. He's really bad on the board by himself. But if he has other stuff on the board with him, he can like kind of put into these stalemate situations where it's like really hard to think out like how the turn's gonna happen. Yeah, and then he's a standard unit, so he gets all the cool buffs from that. He's a 5K, so he gets all the cool buffs from Carbuncle. So I think he's just really solid. But I do think you have to cater to him a little bit. And title, I think if you have access to water, I think he's for sure a 4. I think I'm just not sure how much water they have access to in Tactics Advance 1. I think that's going to be the only thing that holds them up.
That's fair.
Next up is Fairy. It's a reprint, Opus 1. It's a limited card. That's pretty much it. Then we have Freya. She's a 3CP, 7K Job Dragoon, Category 9. If you control a Job Dragoon or Cardium Dragoon other than Freya, she has haste. And when she enters the field or attacks, choose a forward opponent controls, it loses 2,000 power until end of turn.
I think this card's really good. I think you can play it in a dedicated 9 deck. I think she combos very well with Beatrix because if you got her and B attacking at the same time, something's losing 3,000 power on top of everything else losing 1,000 power. So, and I think she's fine. And if you're playing Dragoon decks, there's no reason to not run one, maybe 2 of her because she's great Cherry Blossom fodder, and sometimes she's just the better play. So, I think in title, I think she's a 5 out of 5. Obviously, I don't think she'll never get. Oh no, she will get the haste because you can play other Freya. Oh no, it's other than Freya. Never. Oh, it does. No, wait a minute. Is it card named Freya or just herself?
This card. It means this card.
Okay, so if in title, if you have the other Freya out, this one will have haste as well.
Correct.
Okay, good. So we're good. Yeah, so she's a 5 out of 5 in title, and I think in standard she might be a 4. I could easily see her being a 4. I think she's really, really good.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of people talking about her that much, and I do think people are sleeping on her too. I'm going to give her a 4 in standard. I think in a Dragoon deck, she's a no-brainer if you're playing Water Lightning, because now King of Burmecia can search a water card. You couldn't do that before, so you can fix your CP there. She's extra fodder for the Cherry Blossom when you need it. Because you can run 6 Freyas now if you want. Sometimes, sometimes she's the better play. Sometimes she's just coming in for 7K as a haster, and she's going to reduce something by 4K because she gets to come into play and swing when she does that. Or 2 things by 2K if she wants to do that. In a deck with Melt Gemini in standard, I think she's insanely good because Melt Gemini still allows their power to be reduced. So maybe her with Beatrix with Melt Gemini is like the way you want to go with that deck, where you're just reducing their board by 1 and then swinging, reducing something by 2, and then they just can't effectively block with things. So I think she's just really solid. And then, in title, I think she's a 5 because she just does a lot of stuff you want in title as well. And she also works really well with Melt Gemini in title, which is also another 9 card. So,
and I do think she goes. I think if Mono Water Fasoya is still around, I think she goes in that deck too.
Yep. Yeah, I can see that too. Because I think Fasoya might also be running Melt Gemini, but we'll get to that in a minute. Next up is Whale Zombie. It's a 2CP Category 9 monster. When it enters the field, draw a card. Put Whale Zombie into the break zone, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and return those to the top or bottom of your deck in any order. I think this card is actually nuts. I think it's one of the best draw cards in the game. The only time it's not is if maybe they have Emperor or something. Sometimes you can just play it, draw a card, and then wait later until they want to attack you, and you can like stack bursts on your deck. You could just play this as like a look at the top 2 and draw a card kind of thing, like if you need a specific thing. I mean, I think it's just really good, and I think people are like kind of forgetting that this card's there too, other than like the memes that you see. But like, I think it's just a really, really good card. I'm gonna give it a 4 in standard, And in Title, I'm going to give it a 5. I think you're definitely playing this card in Title.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you nailed it right on the head. There's just a lot you can do with it, and being able to manipulate the top of your deck and draw a card. I think it's just solid across the board. It does a lot. Again, another card that does a lot for a little.
Yep. Next up is Melt Gemini. It's a 2 CP Category 9 monster. The power of forwards cannot be increased by summons or abilities.
Card's good. Yeah, it's a 2 CP. Okay. For some reason, I thought when I thought I was losing my mind here. I'm jumping through dimensions again. For some reason, I thought in my head when it was spoiled, it was a 3 CP monster. So no, we're good. We're good. Yeah, I think the card's really good. I think it goes in decks again. You know, we mentioned Fasoya. I think this is a great in a Fasoya deck because now you've any cards that could now get out of the range of Fasoya are now right back in it. You know, especially against, you know, like ice decks where, you know, and lightning decks where they really, really need Lulu and Duke Lard to help protect their guys. And then you just windmill slam that guy and you're like, well, doesn't matter. And then, you know, in conjunction with, you know, cards like Beatrix and Freya now being able to reduce power, now they just can't get that stuff back. I think the card's really, really solid. Obviously, he doesn't belong in every deck. You're not playing this card in a deck where you're playing Gal unless you just don't care about Gal not being any bigger than a 6K. So, you know, and I think that's an important distinction. Gal's typically pretty important to monster decks just because he's usually just a primary beater because he's usually like a 12 to 14K. If you're just using him, you know, as a 5 CP guy, get monsters back, that's fine. But more times than not, you're not using him that way. So I think in standard, I'm going to give him a 3 because I think you have to be really careful about your deck construction when you're playing it because sometimes it could just hurt you. Because you got to remember, if you're playing Beatrix and Steiner, Beatrix isn't going to get her buff from Steiner. Steiner's not going to get his buff from her. You know, you're shutting off your Waka if you're playing it. So you just got to be careful and make sure you've really built your deck to maximize this and still punish your opponent for it. I think in Title it's a no-brainer because you know you don't care about your 9 guys getting big and now you're dealing with power reduction. This card just straight dumpsters 12 until they get. You know, there is a Balthier and there was a Balthier in chapters that dealt with monsters. So I'm really hoping we get that in Opus 9 so I don't have to be afraid of this card in Title anymore. So I think in Title, I think it's a 5 because it just stops all the buffs and nonsense and makes your guy pretty much makes Title a very even playing field for 9. But in Standard, I'm gonna give it a 3 because you have to be just super, super careful with it.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 2 in Standard because I think you do have to be like really you have to build to this card. I do think Fasoya is an easy build to this card though because you can just run a bunch of power reduction and now everything's in Fasoya range pretty much. Which is pretty great. But then, yeah, you lose Waka and you lose other things, so the deck looks a little different. In Title, I'm going to say it's a 4 just because it is a bit of a double-edged sword. Like, Steiner loses a little bit of value. All the Steiners, actually. Beatrix uses a tiny bit of value. Anything that kind of power buffs. But, yeah, like, for your Zidanes and stuff, you really don't care. And, yeah, it also shuts down a lot of, like, opposing titles that are just trying to get big, like 12.
Yeah,
and 10 to an extent.
Yep.
So
and it dumpsters Yida.
Oh yeah, it turns Yida into a terrible card. Yeah, against 14, it's also really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna sit on a 4 just because I think in some matchups it's not as good, and some titles have good answers to monsters, just not a lot. Yep. Next up is Lion, or I'm assuming that's how you say it. It's a 4 CP 8K Category 11 job girl. If you don't control any forwards, the cost for playing Lion into the field is reduced by 1. When it attacks, draw a card, then discard a card from your hand.
You know, could be okay if you're playing. I mean, it just sucks because there's not really many water cards in 11. I think in water decks, like for standard in water decks, I think it's a solid, like, you know, play a backup turn 1, play this thing turn 2 for 3. So now you've got a 3 CP 8K on the board. But that's, you know, maybe in certain matchups that's fine because in water you typically want to build backups. So I think it's kind of counterproductive. She's good if she's the first forward you play. And cycling when she attacks is solid. That's never a bad effect in any game because she doesn't necessarily have to do the damage. She just gets to cycle, and it's a good way maybe in like Fasoya decks to maybe get some of the clunky cards out of your hand. Like if you don't see a Poo Poo or a Moogle and you've got a couple Fasoyas in your hand, being able to cycle those could be really really good. So I think I'll give her a 2 for standard. And she's an 11 forward, so I'll go ahead and give her at least a 4 in title.
Yeah, in standard, I'm gonna give her 2 just because of what she does is decent. I think she's just a good budget card. Like, if you just can't like afford other things, maybe you could play her and she's not terrible. But like, I think I would rather just forgo the discount and play Layla Viking like every time.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I think that's just better. In title though, I do think she is a 4. They don't have a lot of smaller stuff, and being able to play her for 3 and be able to like actually have some draw power in title, I think that could be a big deal for them.
Yeah.
So I think she's a pretty solid title card.
Yep, I agree with that, and also too in title if because if I remember Volker correctly, like you can attack with her, draw and or cycle, and then Volker his S is breaks a blocking forward, or is it blocking him?
No, blocking in general.
Okay, cool. So if you swing with her in title, you cycle. Oh, cool. There's a Volker S. Boop. And if they try to block her, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So there could be some cute stuff there.
Yeah. Next is Leviathan. It's a 3 CP EX burst, category 11. Choose a forward until end of turn. It loses 1,000 power for each water character you control.
I think the card's fine. I think it's water pretty much got a straight up piece of removal. I mean, you're obviously using this in mono water decks, and that's really it. It costing 2 off of Unit R is really really good. It's just another great card for water when you're talking about power reduction. I mean, it could be a good follow. Again, it's another great follow-up play to Cloud of Darkness attacking. But again, if Cloud of Darkness is attacking, you don't need this to win the game. You're probably, halfway there. And, I just think it's fine. I just don't know where it goes. I don't know. I think the big question you have to ask yourself, does this replace Kukulkan? Which I don't know if it does because drawing the card is huge. But also it costing 2 off Yuna as opposed to 3 could be good as well. So I don't know. I think I'm very much undecided on this card. Title is a no-brainer. It's a 0. Yeah. I think in standard, I can easily give it a 3, but I think it could be as low as a 2 or as high as a 4. But I'm gonna go right in the middle. I'm gonna go 3.
Yeah, I'll stick on a 3 as well, too. I think it does have some merit to seeing play, but I think in a Fasoya deck, like, Kukulkan is just better. It's going to kill, like, just as many things and draw you a card. With Una R, I think it's better that Kukulkan costs 3 than this costing 2. I would probably rather play Bismarck in most situations. All I'm losing is the burst. So at that point, I'm losing, like, the combo with Fasoya mainly. And in that case, again, I have Kukulkan, so there's that.
Yeah.
In title, I think it's just a 1, just because maybe you get to a point where like you have some water characters, because it's not backups. It could be used as like a cute combat trick, but that's about the extent of it. It's better than a lot of the other 11 summons for them, I think, which isn't saying much because they're not very good for them in general.
Exactly.
But this might be all they got. So.
Yeah.
Next up is Realm. She's a 2 CP EX burst, category 6, 5K. When she enters the field, choose a monster, return it to its owner's hand.
Obviously, I think this Realm is really good. The fact that she can, I'll start with title. I'm going to give her a 3 for title right off the bat because she is like 6. Her and Old Strago are the only answers to monsters in title. So I think having this in conjunction with Strago, and they're both EX bursts, could be really, really good. So I think she's fine in title, and I think she's the only Realm you're playing in title. In standard, I think she has a lot of uses. I think this one could be used in conjunction, if maybe not better than the other Realm, depending on the monster build. Being able to recycle your pot cats, being able to maybe get another use out of maybe like play Tonberry, play Realm, bounce the Tonberry, play it again. Maybe being able to get multiple uses out of that could be good. Being able to maybe bounce the Zombie Whale, play it, do it again. Maybe you're playing a deck where, maybe you are playing a monster deck where you're playing Melty Gemini. Play this, bounce it back to your hand, let Gal get gigantic, swing, then replay Melty Gemini. Something. I think she can do some really tricky things, and obviously she handles your opponent's monsters. it could be good. I think the card's fine. I think in standard, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 3 as well.
Yeah, in title, I'll sit on a 2 just because I'm not sure if she's gonna make the final cut, but she might. I mean, 6 is getting kind of crowded now. Kind of crazy to say that. But she has an extra answer.
What a time to be alive, right?
Yeah, but she has an extra answer to a monster. But I think Strago just kind of does it better. He's just a better forward, and he has that flexibility of also bouncing a forward instead of a monster, and she doesn't have that.
Right.
In standard, she can do some cute stuff, but I'm probably gonna be on a 2 there as well. She's cheap for bouncing, but bouncing in standard is like not the best because you can just replay it. But it does have some interesting implications with your stuff, like you said, like with Whale Zombie, like with Death Gaze. So maybe that's where she sees play. But I think it's pretty niche, and I don't see like her making that much of an impact. But there are some plays available. So last card of Water is Luna Freya. It's the last legendary of the main colors. She's a 4 CP, category 15 backup. If you control a category 15 forward, the cost of playing Luna Freya to the field is reduced by 1. During your opponent's turn, when a forward other than light or dark is put from the field to the break zone that you control, you may put Luna Freya into the break zone. If you do so, play that forward, place it to the break zone onto the field duel.
I think the card's okay. I don't think it's insanely powerful. I think she's only going to be as good as the deck you put her in. Obviously, I think she plays very well in like a wind water deck, being able to, if you break a Y'shtola on your, if your opponent tries to Shantoto, or they try to do something to force the Y'shtola pop, you can break this, put Y'shtola right back. I think it's great, with something like Noctis, obviously it's great with something like Noctis because you can fight something. You can just trade, break Luna Freya, put Noctis right back, have him ready to go again. I do think there are some neat plays. I don't think she's ever going to be more than maybe a 1 or a 2 of in some decks. I think playing 3 of her is kind of ambitious because she's a slow card. Obviously the fact that she does cost 4, so she can be removed by Alexander, she can be removed by Hecaton Chair. So, I think the card's good. And standard, I do see a lot of the upside. So I think I'm going to give her a 3. I think in title, she's going to be a 5 out of 5 because she's always going to cost you 3, and she's going to get something back that's going to be worthwhile. But right now 15 is not a title deck. So I think, and because there's only 5 15 cards, I think they're all 5s because I think they're all going to be staples in that deck. But yeah, standard 3, title 5.
Yeah, I'll mirror those numbers actually. I think she's pretty costly, to be honest. Like for what, even though like she's doing something pretty powerful if you build your deck around it. But a lot of times you're not going to play this in like a 15 deck really because a lot of those guys are in Earth, so a lot of times you're not even going to get the discount. So she's going to cost you 4. And even then in that deck, like they don't really have a lot of like ETBs, so you're really just like saving. So she's very passive there.
Yeah.
I think when being able to use her aggressively is probably where she's going to be able to be abused the most. Maybe with like Y'shtola, like being able to cancel a summon and bringing Y'shtola back so you can cancel another summon if you want to.
Yeah.
Maybe like something like Emperor, some kind of waltz like that. Like now I can bring him back. But there is a window where they're able to do stuff.
Right.
When stuff like that happens.
I will say this, and I just thought about this because I have a lizard brain. I think she could be good in like the Fire, Water, 9 aggro. Like you have all these 9 characters in Luna Freya. You Phoenix back in a VV, 2 CP Phoenix. The ones and then this is like super specific. I don't know why my brain immediately thought of this like line. You Phoenix back in the VV. You burn something. You block with it. You pop Luna Freya. You put it right back. You burn something else. So maybe you could get really cute with some tiny things like that, but I don't know.
Yeah, even then, that just seems like a lot of setup,
There's a lot of moving parts there, for sure.
But I do think, like, if you could do things like that. Like, Gabranth, I think Gabranth is really good with her.
Yep, I agree with that.
Being able to, like, negate a point of damage, then bringing Gabranth back, and theoretically you can negate a second point of damage if you really want to.
I also think it works really well with the old legend Cecil. He's forced to block, you trade, he comes right back.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's just you have to be able to weigh you have to be able to use this on your opponent's turn, since you can't do it on your turn. So I think that's where the interesting stuff kind of comes in.
I agree with that.
So I mean, I'm interested to see what people do with it. I think it does have some strong text, but I think you're gonna have to work a lot harder for it than people I think are looking at it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, yeah, and I believe that is it for the water cards.
Yeah.
So I think they got some pretty cool stuff. I think some of the other elements got a little bit more stuff than they did, but still, like I think Mono Water is probably going to be a pretty good archetype out the gate as well.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what people do with it.
And I easily think Zidane is one of the best cards in the set, if not the best card in the set. He's definitely up there.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think a lot can unfold. I think Water can go in a lot of different directions. I do also think the 9 characters they got, with the exception of poor Quincy, that I think they're all going to become staples in whatever deck that like if you're wheeling Firewater 9, you're obviously playing Zidane, you're playing Freya, you're playing that new Steiner. I do personally think that new Freya becomes a Water staple.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, so with that, the next one will be a pretty short one. It'll be Light and Dark. So we'll see you then.
Toodles.